Yo, yo, yo. What up, everybody? Welcome back to the Live Reality Games podcast. And tonight we are recapping Survivor Angelica Medieval Mayhem. We just had episode 4 hit us, the change of the guard. And, you know, that's really what it was, guys. And we had a little tribe swap. We had a little shake up. We had some things go down, but to recap it all tonight, we got the right people in the room. I got myself, Daniel Ball. We got Scott. We got T. And here, just now, hopping in the room, the actuary, the guy who is actually not on time, but he's here. Steven, what's up, dude?
What's up, guys? I'm super pumped to recap this episode and pumped to be on the podcast for the first time.
Hey, it's about time. We know, and we were joking, like we figured like you were in some kind of org or something. You were just busy and like, you know, living that LRG life, because little does maybe people do know, like you were in 10 of these over the course of the year, and we are still baffled on how you juggle and manage the time to do it all. But my brain hurts after playing this one, and it still hurts. So I don't even know how you like can manage through it all. So
yeah, it's crazy to do all of those LRGs. It's just I found out about it in 2023. Didn't really get to apply to many that year. So when 2024 came out, I pretty much applied to anything that I was free for throughout the whole summer. Probably applied to 15, 20 LRGs. And practically said yes to every single one that cast me, and just had a ball with it. And I think there was 6 weeks in a row that I had LRGs, 6 weekends in a row. So it was wild. And Angelica being one of them.
Quite the eventful year for you, for sure.
Yeah.
But what was eventful was this episode. And Scott, a little bittersweet for you. I'll say it. You know, it was the most exciting episode so far. It was the biggest shit show so far, and I loved every minute of it. And we've got a lot of chaos. I mean, we got a chaos agent here with us, like just ready to stir some shit up. But we get a cold open from Santi. Santi was he big on that. He was happy about that. But the reality is the show opens with the snoring. And I've got to ask you two, Scott and Steven, like, I don't know about the snoring, but what I will say is it doesn't affect me because I can usually just sleep through anything. So if someone is snoring bad, like it doesn't bother me.
That you say that now. You weren't there.
But how bad was it? Hannah said that she went outside to sleep. I'm sure she wasn't the only one, but for you, like, in terms of hours, did you get a single hour of sleep?
I did. I don't know when that hour happened, but I will tell you this. My father snored when I grew up, so like I'm used to it, and this was fucking horrible. and the worst part about it is like we turned the lights off and Joelle was out immediately. So the snoring started before anybody had a chance to even like lay down and start relaxing. It would have been a different story if it started middle of the night, but this was like from the gate, out the gate. It was, oh my God. It was unbelievable.
Well, the one thing that you can do in this game if you can't sleep is you can go idol hunting, and it seems
should have done that.
Natasha beat you to it. It seems like.
Thank God.
Early bird gets the worm.
And she did. She found an idol, and her and Chad are clearly, they have this connection together. They're trusting in each other. She also says that she told Chad, but also told the girls to try to, gain some trust from them. But it seemed like basically everybody knew. Scott, did you know? Steven, I'm assuming you knew?
Yeah. I woke up and maybe not even 5 minutes after waking up, Natasha comes in and is like, "Oh, guys, I got an idol." I was like, "What?" Like, I just woke up. How do you already have an idol?
Right. She had proposed to us the day before, right before the second tribal. She wanted to do an alliance of all the guys and her. So when she came to tell us about it, she's like, "Oh, I had to tell the girls because they saw me like as I found it." Who knows how true that was, but like we all knew about it. She didn't keep that secret very long.
No, she didn't, and she made it sound like, she only told the girls and Chad, but like I was thinking, man, basically everybody knows Natasha. Like,
Yeah, and not only that, but as we saw in this episode, which I think was a very big mistake on her part, was immediately after tribe swapping told everyone, even like T and all the other people in the other tribe, that she had an idol. Why? That was supposed to be to like get them. Let's say it was a 4-3 vote, and then the person who had an idol, let's say Jess, played it on the right person. Then we should have been able to use that idol to then play it on one of us to try to save us. But that was immediately out the window because now everyone knew that she had an idol.
That information was big.
Yeah. I don't know what your perspective was, Stephen, but like when we swapped, while we were in the majority, I was very worried about Tasha because she to me felt like the one who was going to jump ship first. And then when she told everybody that, it felt like she and Jess were kind of untouchable, where like they couldn't even be considered because if either one of them got wind of anything, they were going to pull the trigger, which ultimately happened.
Right. Like I think it made her a target and not a target, because I don't think people were necessarily thinking of targeting Natasha because they just weren't thinking of it. And then she brings up that she has an idol, and now people are like, well, if she's just going to go around saying that willy-nilly, like maybe she is a good person to get out, but then at the same time she has an idol, so like it's probably not the smartest idea to target her. So
it was
she tried to give it away. At one point she's like, if any of you want it, and I was like, no, keep it, it's yours. Which for me, that was trying to make her feel comfortable, because I wanted her to feel comfortable so we could like, stick together. Little did I know where the flip would come from.
On our end, it was a great distraction from what was really going on.
Yeah, it was. We'll get into the logistics and the feelings like once we swapped. I do want to bring this up though, Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
Ayla mentions that she felt as though you and Chad were the masterminds. Chad's making fake idols, and like she feels like you two are kind of running things. What was your perspective on that comment when you hear it back? Did you feel like, okay, yeah, I can see now like how people would perceive that, or were you just kind of being you and just kind of just being social and playing the game, or was that part of the strategy?
Yeah, I definitely thought it was funny, her comment saying like because Chad was older that like he was like a more evolved like mastermind of myself, which I like that. But yeah, no, I wasn't necessarily trying to be a mastermind. I was just trying to be very well socially integrated. So I was just playing up my social game, trying to have relationships with everyone. I thought I had a great relationship with everyone going into the tribe swap. Hearing that comment by Hannah in her confessional saying that she didn't like trust me that much, I was kind of surprised. But yeah, it was definitely just me trying to be social and being with everyone, make sure that my name was not going around, that I was set up for not only the vote that's happening, but the next vote and the vote after that. So that's probably what made people start thinking that maybe I'm a mastermind of the tribe. I wasn't trying to be, but just trying to make sure I was set up really well. And I guess that was a little more obvious to people than I maybe wanted it to be.
So maybe, do you think that knowing that, having this swap when it did, was it a good thing? Was it kind of like a distraction away from her being able to like perpetuate this feeling to other people?
I don't. Well, the fact that we were up in numbers, I thought it was a good thing for us. But if I had to choose at that point in the game, not knowing how the tribes would shake out, if I wanted a tribe swap or not, I did not want a tribe swap because I felt really safe in my tribe. I had really good relationships with the guys. We had a guys alliance with Natasha and a guys alliance with Hannah and Ayla. So I felt like at that, if we went to tribal again, we were in a perfect swing position. And then at that point, we would be able to kind of control the tribe from that standpoint. So I didn't really want a tribe swap, but seeing that we were up 4-3 in numbers, that was great. But at the same time, my number 1, 2, and 3 allies were the 3 on the other tribe. So even though we had majority, I was still with the people that I trusted a little bit less than everyone else on my original tribe. But I thought that after having a full night of when I went to the market, I got us a bottle of wine. We drank all night long. We had a great time. I thought it bonded us to the point where there's no shot a 4-3 majority would ever flip. And so that was crazy. That blindsided me big time.
On Thane, we said this: if you come back with any like amenities, we're going to fucking kill you. Like,
yeah, pretty much.
Which in hindsight, T, we probably should have said like, let's hold off on some of these idols and yeah, go get us a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
Let's have that. But
well, I'm really enjoying watching myself yell at myself every episode, just being like, "You're a fucking moron!" Like, what would you do? Like immediately, I realized how stupid of a move that is. Which is funny watching back because I came home and pretty much basically only talked about how stupid of a move that was. But I think at some point somebody got apples, Santi, and like Daniel and I gave someone else our apples. Yeah. We're like, get this shit away from us. We don't need this.
I think I ate maybe a half an apple the next morning, but it was only because I think it was sitting outside all night, and I was like, all right, clearly nobody wants this, so I'll start my day with this.
Yeah, that was definitely smart for me because we had brought I think it was Ayla maybe who brought a bag of snacks. So we each got a different tribe member got like a different snack. And so everyone else ate them immediately. And I decided to keep it for the next morning because I knew that in the morning I would need some sort of fuel. So I don't feel like I have to throw up. And so eating that in the morning felt amazing. And everyone was complaining how awful they felt. And so I was like,
sorry. Santi said the apples were a distraction. He didn't want people to know he had that idol.
He told everybody though. Like
nobody knew he had that idol.
He's like, just a distraction. Just a distraction. But
I felt great the next morning because my feet didn't hurt anymore. So I was fine.
You know, T, you talked about, with Katie, the ability or putting together a plan to flush the super idol from Tara. So walk me through how that comes up, but also like how come it didn't get any traction?
Well, it came up because clearly I realized what a mistake I had made. And I needed to get myself out of it. When Tara played that first idol, it sent me. I was mad, but I couldn't show how mad I was. But it was really hard to not show how mad I was. But I don't think I played as fast as everybody else on our tribe, and so there were quite a few day one final twos out there that I wasn't quite aware of. So that just kind of got in the way.
Yeah, but it's tough. Like when you're playing 3 games, but they kind of lulled us into this false sense of security by having they had like 3 reward challenges right off the bat. So everyone's feeling all good about themselves, regardless of whether they won or not. But, the gameplay had started well before any of that. And, obviously it's well along the way, people's strategies are starting to come out in this episode. Katie also pitched an all-girls alliance, was pitched. She claims that you pitched an all-girls alliance to her.
I did. I do. I have to admit, I always pitch the all-girls alliance. I'm a big fan of the Black Widow. I have to also admit that the all-girls alliance never works. I would like to throw that out there for anybody listening. It doesn't work. Girls don't want to work with each other. Sorry. But yes, I pitched it in the bathroom.
So T comes back out of the bathroom and she goes, "Look, let me tell you something, Dan. All right. They're pitching an all-girls alliance." And I told him, "Okay, but that shit's bullshit. We're not doing that." And I was like, "Oh, okay." But the thing that keeps this thing going is like throughout this episode, I hear all-girls alliance multiple times. And Katie is the one that I hear is behind it all. But, and whatever it is, maybe she gets the pitch from you and then she's like, well, maybe that's not a bad idea to kind of throw that out there. So it was there. It was always out there. And, thankfully it didn't come to fruition, but this is the point in the game where Santi has this epiphany about UT. He says, I need her to go. He loves you and he adores you and appreciates you. But in that particular moment, he was like, you're an agent of chaos and it's just too much, which I'll ask you, were you being an agent of chaos on purpose, or it was just the fact that we allowed them to get these idols and put us in this position where we're like, fuck, okay, like, what are we doing?
No, I don't. I am just a chaotic person. So I'm not a Steven. I'm not methodical. I don't think out tribal after tribal. I'm rolling the wave. I'm going with it. I'm seeing what I can make work. Who's going to listen to me? Who seems to be trusting me in that moment. I'm very go with the flow player. And then it turned out that it was me, you, Dan, and Jess. And despite you being the podcast host of the century, you barely said a word the whole first day. And so we get together and it's me, you, and Jess, and you two don't talk. So now I'm like talking for two other, I felt like I was talking for three the whole time.
Okay. So it's kind of by design, all right? Because you and you're the person, like, you're going to speak, you're going to talk, and you're going to do a lot of it. And I didn't necessarily feel like I needed to voice a whole lot, because I could just confirm and, agree and do those things without having to vocalize a whole lot and draw a whole lot of attention. And I think looking back on it, I think I would have played it a little bit differently. I would have been more vocal in particular moments. But I also, we get to this swap and it's like, oh shit, like now we're at a deficit. What are we going to do? And I know, like, it probably would have helped for all of us to be more vocal. But what I didn't want to do, especially when my name starts getting floated out there, is be the guy that's the loudest. So, you're right.
And
I didn't do you any favors. My bad.
No, you know what, Dan, though? I felt like you were for sure my best alliance throughout the game. You were the person I felt most comfortable with. I think you were the person I told the most truths to throughout the game. I was looking to go far with you, unlike other people who I was talking to at the same time.
Once we got past, once we get to this swap, and like we'll go ahead and hit it now. All right. Swap happens, new Thane is me, Steven, Hannah, T, Natasha, and Scott. New Lauren is Santi, Paige, Tara, Katie, Chad, and Joelle. And for us, we're now at a deficit. And I felt as though, we were starting to build a connection, and now it's just us. And so now we really have got to stick together. And I think we did a really good job of making it through this and being pretty tight and having to trust one another, even though, like, our names are being thrown out there. And, like, at some point we might have had to agree to vote one another. Thankfully it didn't come to that, but we go into this immunity, and I'll ask you, Steven, being, from Lauren coming over to Thane, you've got the numbers. Are you guys even talking about throwing this immunity? Or is that just something that Natasha is festering in her own brain?
So this is something that I thought of, that I think that we should have thrown the challenge so that we could keep up in numbers. However, I did not voice this because I wasn't thinking of it at the time. I was also just thinking of what part of the immunity challenge I'm going to do, and like trying to meet the new players that are now going to be on my tribe, trying to feel out if I should give my advantage to Joel or not, because they were down in numbers. So I was considering that. So I wasn't really thinking of throwing the challenge. But I am glad that, well, at the time I was glad that Natasha threw the challenge. but obviously it didn't work out.
You know what I'm going to tell you, Steven? I think you threw this challenge. You were shit at that puzzle and then forced me to come over there and be shit with you.
And you're like
Sam
a
is always
local beast.
Sam is always.
I do want to say, I mean, it took
Steven
took them like
puzzles
15. It took the other tribe like 15 minutes to finish the puzzle. It took me probably like 20. So it was a tough puzzle, and they made it seem like from Jason saying like, oh, all he has to do is look at the other puzzle and recreate it. Like, no, like I got 5 seconds to look at it, and then they took it apart. So we practically were going from scratch. So it was just, I just couldn't finish the puzzle quick enough. It was a tough puzzle that you had to come and help me with.
Yeah, I did so much to help you. Hey, you know what? We were able to complete that puzzle many times with just 5 pieces.
Yeah, so many times. It was insane. They should have made like a compilation of just how many times I asked for a check knowing that it was just not correct because there was still not a piece in there.
Right. And then we looked at their puzzle and like, I guess it was from a different angle, but even still we couldn't get it right. But hey, it is what it is. We ended up getting to where we needed to get to before they did. And we
ended up having the lead after the
table puzzle
maze.
Oh, yeah. We ate that up.
Yes. We did fabulous on that.
A table maze, y'all crushed that. Scott, I'll ask you, man, because when I'm sitting there with Steven, the actuary, the guy that, is the puzzle guy that I was told can do all these things, and he's struggling, and then clearly I go up there and struggle. I'm like, these motherfuckers, they are throwing this like, and so I was like, you know what? I refuse. I have too much pride in me to even give a inkling of like help, like, but eventually we get it. But did you know that Natasha was throwing this?
No, I suspected that it might happen, but not because anybody ever said it. This only, at least for me, this only came out like long after, where she's like, yeah, me and Chad talked about it. I personally would not have advocated for that, even though we were up in numbers, because like I don't like taking any chances. How ironic. So if she had even said it, I would have been like, don't do it, girl. Just let's try to win, because I'm sick of losing.
Just think of how tight we could have been if we won.
I know.
Could have changed.
I would have loved to work with
Tiana,
because I feel like we have the same energy. We just never had the chance.
Yeah, with like the whole throwing the challenge, I thought it might possibly be a good idea because we're up 4-3 in numbers, but I did not want to throw it and was still trying to help Natasha in that last section to try to like give her pointers and stuff so that we could win, because even though we're up 4-3 in numbers, I knew Jess had an idol. So, and at that point, there were more guys that went home than girls. And then there were also Tiana, who I wanted to have be a really tight ally of mine because, we both share a friend in Pat Johnson. So I thought that could help give us a little bit of a alliance to start off with, and hopefully that can grow. So
can you say that one more time?
The Pat Johnson.
Okay. That's gonna come up later.
Pat Johnson.
Pat Johnson, the Pat Johnson Alliance.
I'll help you. Steven and Pat Johnson. No.
So I wanted to target Jess, and I knew Jess had an idol. So I was like, I don't know how this is going to shake out. We do have the numbers, but I didn't want to risk it. I'd rather just stay safe for a round, so I didn't want to throw it.
Yeah, it was clear. You guys did a good job of convincing everybody you didn't throw it. But, I figured if anybody's going to do well at the chicken wire maze, it's going to be Natasha. I mean, her little fingers were digging all around in the dirt and in the trees and in the bush and in the poison ivy looking for her. I thought she was just primed for that, but I guess not.
We'll never know the truth.
Andrea says, Dan the man. T, you call me that? I love it. I love
Dan
it.
the man.
I mean, I feel it. Love that. Santi said it only took him 11 minutes, y'all. Chill out. And then Steven, he claims that there was a moment where we solved the puzzle and then took it apart.
That did happen.
You can see it.
You can see it. There's a spot where it's like you need to put the last piece in, and then before you do, you just take the whole thing apart. And I'm like, what the fuck?
I don't think
because we didn't know about it obviously until the episode aired.
Who did that? It was probably me.
Go back and watch it. You're gonna see it. It's crazy. You're like
me?
pick up the piece and then
It was
put
probably
down.
me. I did some bullshit like that, just being stupid.
Me or Santi? I thought Santi had done that.
No, he's saying there was a moment where y'all solved it. That was from him. But
hey, you'll see it.
I gotta go back and watch that. That's so funny.
That's gonna be on the B-reels.
Well, watching this back, and this also comes into play later, I was like, why is Daniel helping Steven? Like, he's not even on their tribe, because I forgot that we had swapped.
So
I get confused easily.
The new Thane goes down, and then that's when, I mean, basically that's when the shit is hitting the fan.
Oh no, the shit had
so
started
bad.
hitting the fan during the challenge.
I think before, when Tara takes off and she's like, peace out, T. I'm gonna take this idol in my pocket later, dude. And they're all like, yeah, so are we. Bye.
I was like,
Before we even started the challenge, T comes to me and Hannah, and she's like, whatever you guys want to do. You want to get Dan? Let's get Dan. Cool. And I go to Hannah, I'm like, okay, great. That's perfect. Then later, not the case. Understandable.
I think in that situation, like, we are unless we're clear on being able to flip somebody, then like you don't have a choice. It's kind of self-preservation at that point. Because I know, like, we know that if you guys had the chance, you would probably just pick us off, and that's fine. That's a great strategy. However, I think if Natasha doesn't come with that idol, I think our conversations are a little bit different about how all of us, especially us four, can work. Because that was kind of a wrench in the whole thing, is what is she going to do? And like, she, even up to the point of having the opportunity of playing it or not, like it was this dramatic thing. And like,
oh yes, I think like we'll get to this later, but like this episode or this moment, this round for me had like every single thing I hate in Survivor that I like don't want to have to suffer through, and it all happened at once. So it's like, of course I went home. But I would have been very interesting if like we didn't know about Jess's idol, if nobody knew about Tasha's idol, because that would have changed everything. Like, who the fuck knows what we'd be looking at? That could have changed the rest of the entire game, but we'll never know.
Well, to be very clear, I knew obviously right off the bat, because I have a little mini meltdown about the merge or the tribe swap, because I have not played a game yet where I am not in the minority in a tribe swap. Not yet. Hopefully
Swap
it's
is the
coming.
worst.
But not yet. So I'm freaking out right off the bat. Jess is like, it's not that bad. I'm like, girl, you haven't done it 6 times. Like, you don't understand.
We're both over there going, hey, we could win this challenge. So it's like, don't sweat it right now. Like, we can be pissed about it later. And she's like, no.
Because my mind is like, I know they're going to try and throw this challenge. Like, I know it. I know they're going to try and throw this challenge, that we have a minority. Like, this is all going to play out exactly the way it always plays out. So I'm already thinking, what do I have to do? Right? Like, we have to flip somebody. So going in and throwing Dan out was never trying to get, or was never a plan to vote Dan. And Scott is nodding because he figures this out probably after he goes home, what all went down. But like, that was very intentional, throwing your name out in front of certain people and seeing where it went. And I think being able then to go back to you, Daniel, and then your connection with Hannah, and making it clear how that was working, left a door open for her to say what she needed to say.
Yeah, I think being able to have her go with us was key. But to be honest, Scott, like, you weren't necessarily the plan right away. Like, it was later. Like, that came to fruition at the very like last moment.
Yeah, and that was my understanding, at least.
And I'll let T tell the story, because it's like, it is a lot of T, like really like selling it and selling
like
it.
Tea
and selling
or like tea?
Oh, both.
Tea.
Yeah. So
a little bit of both mixed in.
The one thing that I was able to tell Hannah was like, look, the one thing that I do know is we know where the power is in the event that we can merge after this. So if you come with us, there's a high likelihood that you're in a better spot. And that might have fucked her game up, and it probably did. And I apologize for that, Hannah. But in the moment, like
I mean, she made the decision herself, so she fucked it up herself.
we needed
That's not your fault.
we needed a number, and that was the best shot that we had. But you know, when you look back at the Lauren tribe, it's like they're having a good time. Paige and Sonny feel good because they have numbers. You know, Katie is like, you know, if Dan has to be a casualty, that's all good with me. I don't care. Hey, whatever. And I'd probably be the same way, but you know, she's saying outwardly that T, you're mad that Tara kept the idol. And what could we have done differently? That's what I go back in my head. And
never say anything, Dan. Never say anything. For the first time in my life, I find something when we get there. I find those extra coins. And despite giving all the coins we win to everybody, I've kept these extra coins that I found in the beginning. And part of the reason in the very beginning that I tried to get Brian out with everybody was because Brian was the only one who knew I had those extra coins. So
well, he had extra coins too, because he gave them all to me.
Because we caught each other finding extra coins. And so now we know we both have extra coins. And then he starts saying my name. So now I know he's spreading shit and I got to get him out because he has this information I can't have out there. So what I wish we would have done was kept my mouth shut for 5 minutes. 5 fucking minutes. Okay. And then in like 2.5 hours, we would have known where we all were, and the people who I was working with would have brought their coins together. Like, in theory, it was a great idea, but also I've never had luck ever in a game I've played. Like, so I don't know why I thought I was pulling out a red rock to go there. Like, it's just so many stupid moves, so many stupid ideas.
I mean, part of it is, though, knowing where and who has things makes it somewhat easier. And I think in our head, we were trying to justify it. At least we know where they're at. But the reality is yeah, we know damn well where they're at, because when it came time for us being vulnerable and needed them, guess what? That whole, oh yeah, we'll use them when whoever needs them, we'll use. That clearly wasn't the case.
Yeah, BS. And I knew that, which is why we tried to flush. Well, I tried to flush the super idol because it was pretty clear at that point that this was not working in my favor. But so, you know, I guess I play best from the bottom. So
hey, I don't know. I think there's some truth to that, but I think, you know, if you look back, there are some moments where I don't necessarily think you were at the bottom. I think you know, we were at the bottom clearly in this particular episode, but I think prior to that, we were in a good spot. You know, Tara says a super idol was kept for a certain number of people that Katie spearheaded. Unfortunately, T was not part of that number. So when I asked, she said no. Bullshit.
I do have a hard time believing that in a situation like in situations that we will see later, if they were in them, they would have handed super idols over to each other.
Yeah, so. I think if it's in a situation where it's you or me, I don't think they're handing anything over.
Yeah.
You know? So, and like you said, not to spoil anything, we'll get to it. But Steven, I want to talk to you for a second. Obviously, coming over, you're feeling good about the numbers. Was there any point where you started not feeling good about the situation?
Yes, but not because I thought someone was going to flip. I was just worried about trying to see who I can get out on the other side, because I wanted Jess out because I didn't have any relationship with Jess. Us 4 that are on this podcast right now had made like a mini 4-person alliance because T and I were talking and we each said, who's the person that you feel the most comfortable with on this tribe? I said Scott. T said you. And then so we like formed this 4. And so I was trying to keep that intact if I could, going after Jess. Jess had the idol, and I really wanted to make sure to protect T, because T's name was getting thrown around, and I was trying to immediately like squash that and just say, let's just vote Daniel. So that was definitely nerve-wracking because we'll talk about this more later, but going into tribal council, there was no plan. That's why there was a live tribal. We had no plan. We kept going back and forth thinking about different ways to get around this idol, and we could not think of anything until tribal council. So that made me really nervous. Not that I thought someone would flip, but that I thought the idol would backfire on us and one of us could possibly be going home.
So, like I was telling Scott off air, my plan going into this was to throw vote at Natasha, because like her gameplay, I could see where it was going, and I was like, I don't want this. Like I just don't want to be full of anxiety for as long as she's in the game, and which, you know, it clearly is. But my vote was going to be towards her, and then we have tribal. So let's get to that. And it's live immediately. I think Jason asked maybe T a question, and all of a sudden, I think Steven, you get up immediately and start chatting. Who are you talking to, and what are you talking about?
Everybody about everything.
Yeah. So the beginning of live tribal, I was trying to talk to people to figure out who are we actually targeting, Daniel or Jess, and or how are we going to split it up to make this work? Should I use my advantage to block 2 votes from one of us to make sure that we can split the vote, and stuff like that. So the beginning was really trying to see, are we going after Daniel or Jess, and how the votes are going to shake out. Then I had talked with Hannah, and Hannah mentioned that she had a block a vote and she could use that. And then from there, I thought, oh, wow, okay, so if we can block one of their votes, we can do a 2-2-2 vote split and guarantee that we stay safe. So I thought that was a brilliant plan, foolproof. I was like, this is perfect. You have a block a vote. I got the 2-2-2 vote split plan. We're good. So the rest of the time was me trying to make sure that everyone knew exactly who to vote for. So we were going to do the guys vote for Jess, the girls vote for Daniel. And we see, based on the vote reading, that Scott did not vote for Jess and voted for Daniel. And then I was also trying to talk with Daniel and T because I'm hoping that we can somehow get Jess to still go home because she has an idol. I was talking with T, trying to get T to convince Jess that Daniel is going to be the vote, so that Jess, to try to protect all 3 of you guys, plays the idol on Daniel, therefore saving Daniel, because that's who I really wanted to work with moving forward. And then that would result in Jess going home if we do the vote split. But just in case Jess played the idol on herself, I felt comfortable with T compared to Daniel, so I wanted Daniel to be the backup. And so I thought it was going to be perfect because Hannah is the one who offered the block a vote and played the block a vote. And then after playing the block a vote and wasting that advantage, she turns on us. And also T had mentioned to me that Hannah was throwing out my name also. So I was a little concerned about that. But then T was like, don't worry, I would never vote for you. Like, we're not doing that. And so I stopped worrying, not thinking that, oh, maybe they just went to the next guy on our tribe and tried to vote for Scott. So I was really surprised because of the block a vote play.
Ayla said it was a good plan, and had Hannah not flipped, Scott, on Scott, you would have voted, and your plan would have worked perfectly. Jess would have played her idol the way she did, and she would have went home. In my defense, thankfully she didn't go home, because I would have felt terrible. But
Did you feel terrible for me?
no, because
Wow.
I wrote your name down.
Don't worry, I have a
Sorry.
whole thing.
But you wrote my name down, to be
That's
fair.
true, but let's spill the tea here because we haven't talked about this yet.
All right, so walk me through this. So Steven's talking about Hannah playing the block vote, and like I see some passion coming from you. So explain that.
I have a lot of context to provide, so I will do that first. So I've said already, there's a lot of things that happen that I didn't like. One of them is live tribals. I don't like to watch them on the show because I find it very distracting. You see that happen when it's going on, where like I'm trying to listen to Jason and there's all this stuff going on that I have to like stand up and walk away. So I'm like, I cannot focus on what's going on. So after the game, talking to Ayla a lot. Ayla, Hannah, and Sam are the three that I still talk to pretty regularly. Ayla's like, oh yeah, we totally bonded because we both have ADHD. And I was like, what are you talking about? No, I don't. And this led to, well, that's the thing. This led to longer conversations, and I eventually got diagnosed with ADHD. And I'm like, oh, that explains a lot. So that made it like particularly difficult for me. And then in the position where I was sitting, Steven was relaying to me what the plan was. And then Tasha would go, what am I doing? And then I would tell her the plan. To the point where like she asked me so many times, who am I voting for? That I said, Daniel, so many times that I wrote your name down. And then when I sat down, I was like, fuck, I just fucked it up. What's going to happen? And then I was trying to think of like, how do I explain my way out of this after whatever's about to happen happens? Which it didn't.
Well, we saved you from that.
You true, but here's the thing. I would have rather had that happen. I would have rather just been solely responsible for my own elimination from like fucking up the vote, because I could get over that. I have more to explain later. I'll talk about the other thing later, but proceed. The next. So that's why I messed up the vote. Like I wasn't trying to. I knew what I was supposed to do, but in a situation that was as overwhelming as it was, not because I was like emotional, just like overstimulated. I like could not get my head on straight.
Right after that vote happened, I was just mind boggled, and it didn't show on the episode, but if there was a camera that stayed on me the entire time, I was the last one to get up from the log. I stayed there just in shock with like I was just like completely shocked. My face would have been hilarious. I had no idea. Well, I knew what just happened, but I had no idea why it happened, because I thought
I just assumed it was Tasha that flipped. Yeah. Like I was just like, oh, she got me.
I didn't think Natasha would have been the one to flip, so I thought it was Hannah, because Hannah said my name. So I was like, oh, they must have just, instead of doing me, now done Scott. So I was like, oh, Hannah just flipped. But why? She just played the block a vote. Like, what was the point of that? And then I thought about the votes, because I was confused about who voted for what, because it didn't go with the vote split plan that I thought. And then I was like, oh my God, did Scott vote incorrectly? And I was what is going on?
And I literally knew it the moment I sat down. I was like, fuck.
Didn't Hannah go to market and buy the block of vote, and she turned around and played it?
Yes. This is
wow.
I love Hannah, but I'm just like, what
the reason I'm pretty sure the reason she played it was because we gave her the money to buy it, and she felt really guilty about that. And then at that point, and at that point, like me, her, and Daniel were kind of pretty deep into the situation. Don't get me wrong, Hannah definitely came through in the beginning with these feelings about Steven. And I definitely use that to my advantage, because in typical, I think we're all like Survivor fans. And the thing about the Stevens of the world, is they're so smart, but they're the type of people who tell you what the plan is. And some people just don't like to be told what the plan is. So then when you're somebody who goes over and says, well, like, tell me what you're thinking. Like, is there something I can do to make your life better right now? After being told what they're supposed to do, really works. And then at that point, I think Hannah was really so grateful for someone who wasn't just telling her what to do, that when I was like, okay, I love you, but like not Steven, she was like, all right, Scott, that's fine. Mm-hmm. Because at that point I was definitely still, I was not lying to you, Steven. I was working with you and making whatever I could work to keep you there.
Right, yeah, because I would have been probably the one going home if you had not spoken up to me and like tried to help me not be the vote and switch it to Scott. And Hannah was the one who brought up the block a vote, like playing the block a vote, and like we both together decided on this 2-2-2 vote split. So I definitely didn't like to tell her this is the plan, but at the same time, she is the one who's the most scared that, oh my God, they said they're gonna write my name down. So I'm less so trying to tell her the plan and more so like, hey, like I figured out a way to save you. Like, let's do this to save you.
I wish
I guess she just
never expected
me
Hannah to
enough
flip.
going into it. So
I just
Why-
wanted to make that clear, Stephen, because
Yeah.
I don't do it on purpose. I swear.
No,
Steven, I
Go
can
ahead.
give some clarification. Ayla in the chat said, here's kind of how Hannah was feeling, is that you spearheaded an alliance with her and the guys. So her and Hannah were like, okay, maybe Steven, maybe you weren't with them. But that kind of, I guess, is why she had some suspicion on you. And when T was talking to her, she wasn't as high on you as she was on Scott. I don't know.
mm-hmm.
Something
Yeah,
to think about.
I definitely helped get together the guys alliance, but I wanted to work with the duo of Ayla and Hannah. I only was working with Natasha because was it you, Scott, or was it Joel? One of or Chad? Like one of you guys told me like I really want to work with Natasha. Like we have to.
It was Chad.
I think it was Chad and
It was
Joel.
had to
I
be
wanted
Chad
to get-
because they were
Tasha out
tight
like
from
the
the
first
jump.
round because of the stupid fucking horse. I was like, she's gonna be tired
Right.
for every challenge because of this goddamn horse, and she's going all over the place. Love her, but I was just like, this is a
Oh
liability.
yeah, it was. I felt like if we had went to another tribal, it was going to be Scott and I pushing for Natasha, and it was going to be Joel and Chad pushing for it to be Ayla. And so I wanted to work with Hannah and Ayla. I felt comfortable with them. I just think maybe I didn't talk enough with Hannah and specifically Hannah, because I did talk a lot with Ayla, and I think Ayla felt comfortable with me, but
I have a thought.
Hannah kept putting things in her head.
I have a thought, and this goes into what I was talking about earlier. Daniel, do you think this is the right time?
Yeah, because
the right time.
the last thing we're going to get into is how we inevitably ended up on your name, and then that'll be about it for the episode. So
Okay.
this is
Do
your
that.
time to shine. Okay,
Should we do that first? Because I feel like that
Yeah.
makes sense. Like, how did we get here?
All right, so
What happened next?
Tara asked a good question. She wanted to know, did you sway the vote for Scott? If you did, kudos. You know, us being in the minority, swaying a vote and going that way and getting him out was definitely a big move. But from your perspective, you know, we can talk about how it went down, but really it was like the final seconds of this live tribal where this went down. And I'll give you my vantage point first. So it basically was like, I'm telling Hannah, do you, like, everyone's using the word trust. And I said, Hannah, do you trust us? Like we can, I think our move to go forward here is you've got to flip. And whether that's Scott, Steven, Natasha, it's got to be one of them. And it wasn't going to be Natasha because we were concerned that she was going to play her an idol. And so then Jess turns and she goes, T, do you trust me? Hannah, do you trust me? Dan, do you trust me? And I'm like, yeah, I trust you, Jess. Like, why? You've given me zero reason not to. And so at that point, I'm just like, all right, you know, I'm just going to let Jesus take the wheel now because we've done enough talking. And then T, you can kind of take over because then it became another conversation with us with Hannah in which we ended up on Scott's name.
Yeah, so Hannah was pushing Steven from the beginning. I entertained Steven for quite a long time. I like to work under pressure. I feel like it's easier to crack people when like the stakes are really high and you're kind of right there. So I rolled with Steven for a little while, and then push came to shove. I had a quick conversation with Tasha at some point about the idol, just to kind of figure that out. And then me and Hannah kept talking. I really felt like she was most comfortable because of you, Daniel. And so I was able to really sway her with the idea of trust, because she seemed to trust you. I know there were like past experiences that kind of built that previously. And as much as I was trying to protect Daniel and Jess, they were definitely my two. I felt like having Steven there in worst case scenario would mean that I would have that extra vote over Daniel or Jess. So I really didn't want Steven to go. So honestly, I kind of just said like I'm not doing Steve, like as if I had some type of power, as if I was in the majority in this situation.
Yep.
Like I'm not doing Steven, Scott. And I think she was just in a live tribal situation, which is why I say I love live tribal. Sorry, Scott, but I really do like when people are kind of in that.
Different strokes, right?
Yeah,
I love live tribals too.
I like when people are in that chaos, because I feel like if I would have said that to her at camp, I don't think she would have had the same response and the same answer. I think if she had a second to think about it, this probably wouldn't have gone down the way it went down. I think because it was in such a rush, and Jason was kind of like, I have to stop you. You have to stop talking. You have to stop talking. Like, she was just like, fine. Like, all right, Scott, let's go, Scott. And then I turned back to Daniel real quick and, let him know that that's happening, and we roll with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't ever go in confident, but I definitely did not know if it was going to work. So.
Santi, live tribals crank everyone up. It takes all 5 seconds to flip someone, and that is the absolute truth. I mean, like you never know what someone's going to say that's going to completely change someone's thought process or perspective. And I think live tribal, there's like, I think the time pressure, because at any minute that it could be over. Like you have to stop. So like you're trying to like make these rash decisions in such a quick time on such limited information, and it's speed dating, on crack. Like you're just bouncing it around from everybody. But the vote goes down. Scott, you vote me. Natasha votes me. Steven votes Jess. I vote Scott. Hannah votes Scott. T votes Scott. And Jess played her idol on me. And, thankfully, like if I needed it, I was safe, and Jess was safe, which was nice. But Scott, unfortunately, you got the most votes, and you had to go. Looking back on it, man, this is your time. Give us your 2 cents on this whole thing.
You're gonna get a whole $20.
Here we go.
So, where do I begin?
The beginning.
This is kind of based off Steven's point, where Steven, you said like, "Oh, I wish I had talked to Hannah more." I thought the same thing for a while. We're like initially getting voted out. It was so unexpected. I didn't have time to process. And then after thinking about it, I was like, okay, it sucks, but that's what we sign up for. It's happened to me enough times that it's fine. You learn from the experience, you try to figure out what you could do. So I tried to think of what are the things I could have done better? And while I came up with some things, for a little bit, I thought, oh, I guess I should have talked to Hannah more to make her feel more at ease. But then I'm hearing you say the same thing. And then I watched the video and see her walking back and forth during that live tribal. And I'm like, it's a two-way street. Like I could have talked to her more, but she could have talked to me more too. So my initial disappointment gave way to resentment when the game ended. Now I say that not to Hannah as a person, because she's a friend of mine. Like I talk to her all the time. Because she explained to me that the reason she flipped was that she knew Daniel from another game. So when I think about all the things I could have done differently, there was nothing I could have done to change the fact that she knew Daniel. I couldn't get a time machine and go back and play a game with Hannah. The fact that we were in a majority, we just spent the whole day together. She had a block vote. We had a plan to stay in that majority. None of that was good enough for the 1 hour. In fact, what it sounds like less than that of a live tribal for her to change her mind. So while I'm not again, not personally mad at her, I'm thinking so basically there was nothing I could have done, because there was nothing that was going to replace that non-game information having an impact on someone's decision in the game. And I mean, you mentioned this before about the Dan Johnson thing. I don't feel that way about you two, but I know that had an impact. Of course, Steven was never going to be an option, because Tiana would have never done that. So with the two idols that were known and all of these connections, of course it was me. There was nothing I could do, right? So I think the reason I still, like 5 months later, it still bothers me so much is because like there literally was nothing I could have done. Of all the things I could have done differently, I could not have changed that one fact. And that is really hard to accept because like I would have rather just fucked up the vote and gone home because of that. Because at least I can take responsibility for that, figure out ways to, you know, not do that in the future. And I can still do those things. I can still learn from that part of it. But it's just like, God damn it. Wow. So I guess you got to play a lot of LRGs if you want to do well in one because everybody knows each other. Now, I know everybody's going to disagree with me. I shouldn't say everybody, but like I know that people are not going to agree with that sentiment. That's just like my perspective on it, my point of view from having gone through that and feeling kind of like that power was taken away because I didn't know anybody. I had to start from day one, like anybody else who didn't know people, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's kind of like colored the experience where like I had fun. I'm really thankful I got to do it. I want to do it again. I think I deserve a second chance considering everything we've said here, but it is really hard to like not feel that little bit of like, ooh, I'm feeling some type of way about this. Cause what was I going to do? You know?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Shutting it down. I still love everybody and I love all you guys and I'm glad we got to meet. So it's
I think,
well put, Scott.
I think we've definitely all felt that way, that the game's kind of out of our hands. And I think it comes from the relationships outside of the game, but it also comes with what's just happening in the game. And so like to take it out of all that, I think that the relationship with Dan doesn't matter if Hannah doesn't already have the feeling she has towards Steven. And that's not your fault either.
Yeah.
So like,
but that's, yeah, and I agree. Like, I don't think anything is anybody's fault. Like at the end of the day, we're just playing.
Yeah, but it doesn't just like I'm saying it comes from outside the game. It comes from inside the game. Like that's the shitty part about the game is like it's coming from all directions and you just got to fucking hope for the best. Like,
right. And like I said, I think I would feel differently. Like initially not knowing who flipped and just thinking somebody flipped. I was like, okay, well, like next time you just got to do better. Like make sure you're giving people something to hang on to. Cause I didn't think it was anything like that. It was when I found out that piece of information that was like from outside sources. Right. I mean, we all bring like a skill set and like a level of experience, you know, life experience, whenever you play one of these things. I guess it's the knowledge of that. Like we weren't equally advantaged in that way. Like anything that happens from that very first moment when you set foot in that pavilion where they're telling us the rules and they say these are the parameters of the game, whatever happens from there is like out of your hands. You know, you got to do the best you can with whatever twists come up, whatever information is floating around from the game that you don't have access to. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just having a really hard time like processing this one piece that like was truly out of my hands. I think like when I think about Sam, she was also kind of fucked in the sense that she couldn't do anything to change what happened when she went home, but that was based on stuff that happened in the game. So like she was powerless for a game reason. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. And
also at least it was dramatic, right?
Yeah, right. I also think it's pretty interesting that most of the people on our swapped tribe said either on this podcast or in a confessional that their closest allies from our original tribe were on the other tribe. So even though we had the majority, it seems like all of us in one way or another didn't fully have as much trust as we could have had with each other.
Yeah.
I
fell victim to the transitive property a little bit where like I was really tight with Ayla. And I even said in a couple of confessionals that they didn't show her, I'm like, I have to talk to Hannah. Like I need a chance to get her alone so we can talk because I know they're close and I want the three of us to, you know, feel like really close. But what are you gonna do? I don't know if it would have made a difference because considering the situation that we're in and she was willing to like flip all of that for this other person, who knows? Like it might not have made a difference. We're not going to know.
Yeah. And I'm glad Santi didn't end up on my swap tribe.
Right. Well, even that, like, think about that. Like he decided he wanted to target you from the get-go because he knew about you from another game. So
yeah,
like
he
had
knew
that transpired?
I think 2 weeks prior to that, I had won Big Brother Hogwarts.
Yeah.
And so he was like, he's really smart. He's really good at this game. We can't let him win again. I'm like, come on.
Like come on, right?
I was gonna want to work with him. So like,
yeah.
But the reality is, Steven, like, if he wants to win, like, he should be saying that anyways. Like, I don't want anybody to win because I want to win, you know? So,
right.
But Scott, I hope tonight gave you a chance to have some closure. I don't want you
Never.
wearing this anymore. All right.
No. It's my responsibility, right? Nobody needs to fix it. It was nice to talk about it. And if I had to go, at least it was something like fucking crazy. I'm like literally, I hate a swap because I always die. Hate a live tribal. Hate an advantage. They're fine. I just like, I never can get around them. So it's like, yeah, at least it was crazy.
And you had all of that. Look at that.
The ultimate,
right?
vote out.
It's
and here you are,
right?
You've learned, you've grown, and you're a better person now because of it.
What if I'm a worse person though? What if I'm fueled by anger and resentment?
Well, that'll make you a better player.
That'll make you. There
Second
you go.
Chances, right?
Second chances. Survivor Angelica, Medieval Mayhem. Second chances. Here we go.
LRG's cast Scott. LRG's watching this. Cast Scott.
Yeah, do it, bitches, because you keep rejecting me, you asshats. Love you.
All right, guys. That's a lot. We've unpacked one of the most dramatic, thrilling episodes to date of Survivor Angelica. Before we bounce, Scott, I will leave it to you. Anything you want to say? Anything you want to put out there? Plug, promote? Anything you want to get off your chest before we wrap this up?
This was so cool. Like the first time walking into Tribal with the torch, I was like, oh my God, this is like, what the fuck? This is so real. It was super cool. Everybody should play. It was just a really great experience. I'm glad I got to do it. I hope to do it again.
This will make you feel good. You've got a
so
fan.
Cool.
Paige is saying, Cast Scott, get him. T,
you were robbed of my sparkling personality.
T, anything you want to get off your chest? Anything you want to plug or promote or put out there? Any games going on?
No, shout out to Survivor Angelica. Cast me on All Stars.
There you go.
Do that.
All right.
Do that.
I saved you for last, Steven, because I know like you're a guy who like you might have a full slate, so it might take a little bit for you to plug all these games that you got going on. But for you, anything you want to plug or promote or put out there?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. One thing I definitely want to plug and promote is Pat and I have a Survivor recap podcast called Tribal Lines Podcast on Instagram at tribal_lines_pod and Tribal Lines Podcast on YouTube. Definitely check it out. Follow us, subscribe. We love recapping Survivor, and if you guys are Survivor fans like us, then we'd love for you guys to watch and see our opinions on everything and interact with us. And we always have on guest hosts, so if anyone wants to hop on the podcast, let me know and you guys can hop on. And watch out for the Caucus Challenge. I'm a veteran on the Caucus Challenge, and it's such a great LRG. So definitely season 18 is coming out in a couple of months. So definitely check that out. And if you haven't seen season 17 yet, I was on that season. So I think you guys should all definitely check that out on YouTube.
I just applied for that today.
Oh, yeah?
Cast me right now, bitches.
Cast Scott.
Let's go. A-list team Scott. Paige,
you guys are great. Thank you so much for doing this, Daniel. Like, this has been super cool. It feels so real. I mean, it is real. It feels really real. So, like, do a game and do this.
I love talking about this shit. I may not be shit for playing. I enjoy playing it, but I like getting like the inside scoop of shit that I was too blind to fucking see right in front of me happening.
Are you saying you like gossip?
I do. I'm not a shit stirrer, but I love sitting back watching it. Like my wife loves this trash TV, and selfishly so do I, because I just like listening to these hens cackle, man. Like it's crazy. I love it. So for those of you, Steven mentioned a bunch, but if you're looking to get into any LRGs, the best way to find out, Instagram, LRG Casting. They are putting up applications for mini games every day. I see a new one. So for those of you that are, weary, leery, anxious, not sure what to do, just take a leap of faith. Go put in an application. If you get casted, I promise you it'll be the best thing you ever did.
Also, if anyone plays orgs, I host a Survivor mini org. That's a one-day game on a weekend called Steven Survivor. So if you want to compete in that, we do online immunity challenges. It's on Zoom. Use breakout rooms to strategize and to vote people out. Advantages are randomized every round. It's always a lot of fun. We stream it live on Twitch, and so far we've had a bunch of great seasons, 6 seasons. Season 7 is coming up soon. So if you guys want to play in that, definitely hit me up. I see everyone's is on here, but I didn't put mine. So hit me up on Instagram at StephenLupo9.
There you go. At StephenLupo9. I'm going to do that. I've never played an orc, so I'm curious.
Oh, it's fun.
It's a lot of fun.
It's fun.
Especially
they're long, though. They're long.
I mean, I get sleepy, man. So like, this has got to be wrapped up by like 10 o'clock, man.
You got to do like a long.
I'll do my best.
One.
I think mine usually go from like 2 to 10 o'clock or so.
Okay, I can deal with that. I can carve out some time. I'll hit you up. We'll talk about that. But guys, I appreciate y'all. Go to YouTube / Live Reality Games if you want to apply Live Reality Games casting on Instagram. And we'll see y'all next Thursday. We got episode 5. It's gonna come out on Saturday. It's gonna be a big one. I have no idea what direction we're gonna go because I almost need a week break after this episode.
Well, you're not gonna get it.
Nope, not at all. But we're gonna jump right into it and keep it moving. But for me, Scott, Steven, and T, I appreciate y'all, and we'll see y'all next week. Peace.
See you guys.
Bye.